I am firm in my opinion that the Scriptures teach us that our God is a healing God, and He desires to heal us.
I definitely believe in miracles. I definitely believe in the power of prayer to change things.
I'm Steve Aubrey. There's been a lot of scientific and popular interest in the power of prayer to heal physical illness. But what does prayer actually do for us? Can healing miracles result from fervent prayer? Stay tuned and listen to these stories.
Well, I experienced that scary moment when I discovered a lump in my breast, and it was total shock, as I'm sure it is with most people, but I had always been very, very healthy, never had anything wrong. I'd always been eaten well and exercised and done the right thing. So I was in denial. I thought, this is not happening to me. And also knew that I didn't have health insurance, and I wasn't concerned about it because I believed in the power of healing, and I believed in the power of God to heal me, and I didn't need doctors or anybody else. And so I once put that into practice and did positive affirmations and really, really believed that I would be healed. God would heal me. I knew God could heal me. And I went on that presumption for almost a year.
Jeanette's tumor wasn't going away. Then she heard that her church would be having a healing service.
I thought, maybe this is what God wants me to do, is going to this healing service.
Jeanette approached parish nurse Jean Wright Elson for anointing during the service.
They just said to whisper what your problem was, and I went forward and I said, I need a healing. She said, would you like to tell me the problem? I said, I have a lump in my breast.
Mentally, I assumed that she was having some sort of therapy for that breast lump, but whether it was God nudging me in the ear or my 50 years of nursing experience, somehow I stopped and said, I hope you're getting therapy. And she said, no, this is it. So I very quickly leaned forward and said, please come to see me. And thank goodness she did. When she came to see me, we had quite an emotional counseling time because this is an emotional subject for women. And I encouraged her to realize that God works through the medical profession. He works through the physician's hands to help the healing. And that seemed to encourage her to go on for the proper care.
They happened one by one. The different needs were met. And first, the crucial was the financial, which I could never have dreamed how it was going to happen at all. And in a sense, that was an answer to prayer.
I went again with her for the surgery to keep her calm, to pray with her. And then she had follow-up chemo, and as of this date, she's just doing fine.
Even though I was terribly reluctant to go through the physical part of it, I knew that I couldn't not do it, because this seemed to me a clear path that God had intervened and had answered my prayers. And even before that, I'd had a talk with a minister, and I said, I know God can heal me without all of this stuff. I really know. And my friends were thinking I was crazy because I wasn't going to do anything about it. But I said, I know God can heal. And I've read lots of accounts, and I believed it with all my heart. And the minister said, yes, but sometimes He uses people. And He uses doctors, and He uses nurses and technicians, and we have a physical body, and sometimes it has to be treated in physical ways, which was what I needed to hear. So this was an answer to prayer, too, for me to have peace with going through this process.
Mary Paz Porres has also felt the healing power of prayer in her life.
There were 2 or 3 times that I was awakened in the evening with a very intense pain in my arm. And so I decided to have it checked. They took the biopsy about 10 days after. They called me and they told me that I should contact my the oncologist and that it was cancer. So that's what I did, you know, and 2 weeks after that, I had my first surgery. They removed part of that, but it's still, they continue finding the cancer there. So I was scheduled to go to LA and have a major surgery. After that, I had to go to radiation. They gave me 25 sessions, I think that's what it is. I knew that there were people praying for me, even people that I didn't know, because some friends from work, you know, they just left a message for me. Maripaz, I have a chain of prayer in my church, even different denominations that I do not belong to, you know. And I felt blessed. I felt like, you know, I was being cared for. I felt God's presence through all those people that were, you know, praying for me.
When I felt at my most alone, and I knew that they might not be here with me in person, but it was more powerful and more special that they were with me in spirit. And this is what gave me the hope and the courage.
When I have met people that have going through major crisis, and I approached them and I said, I'll be praying for you, and said, I don't believe in that. I still pray for them because I know that God has the ultimate word and the power, you know.
The prayers of many will bring you peace when you think there's no peace to be had. It will bring you hope when you think there is no hope. And it will lead you through it. It might not be an instant cure or an instant flash, but it will lead you. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow, you will walk through it. And to keep hope is always to see the other through the valley, to see it on the other side. God is always there. Wherever you are, God is always there. And the hope is always there. God is always there.
Rarely do patients ever ask me to pray for them. And I think that is because they've never had that experience before.
Before Dr. Paul Wagner entered medicine, he trained to become a minister and now often prays for his patients.
They're not used to a physician praying for them. For me, it comes naturally to me because of my background and my pursuit of the ministry. For the patient, I think they feel like they can trust their physician more. Their physician embraces the same belief system they do. There's been some interesting studies that have been done, one in particular in Texas by a cardiologist, and he studied 2 different groups of patients in the intensive care units. And he showed that those patients that were prayed for got well faster and had less complications frequently associated with intensive care unit patients than those that were not prayed for. And once reading that, I began to realize not only the power of prayer, but my responsibility to pray for my patients. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 says, pray unceasingly. And I try to interpret that as pray as you go. I have one patient in particular, and he just is suffering from some complications after having a pretty significant surgery. The surgery has cured him, but now it's the post-operative complications that he is suffering through. There's nothing more we can do for this man, but I pray for him every day, and he's getting better, slowly but surely. And I attribute that to prayer. And I believe the Lord is going to answer that prayer for him, and he believes as well. It's reassuring for both physician and patient. Patients realize and understand that their physician believes that healing comes from God. It sort of takes the burden off the physician. I mean, we are vessels of healing. We are not truly the healers in the true sense of the word, you know. We water, we sow, but the growth, you know, is bestowed upon us by God. Similarly, with healing, we have these modalities by which we treat, but my perspective is healing comes from God. I am firm in my opinion that the scriptures teach us that our God is a healing God, and he desires to heal us. He may choose to do otherwise, and that is his choice and his alone. But I believe it is our responsibility as intercessors as people who pray, as the believing community, to lay hands on those who are sick and to believe the Lord to heal them and stand in that posture of faith.
I don't believe God really wants us to be ill. The way I came to terms with it was that my soul had lessons to learn that I couldn't learn any other way.
Those that believe often are humbled, and those that were once strong and become weak and dependent often embrace this brokenness. And the Lord can come and move and draw them closer to Him and do the work that He wants to do in their lives through this brokenness.
That is what happens. It is until we are bedridden or we are desperate and we don't have anybody else to go to but God. And then to me, it's, you know, when we decide to open the door from our heart and mind and give ourselves to Him, that He can start working in our lives.
You can be terminally ill, you can be dying, but you can be healed. You can be healed of a relationship that has gone wrong. You can be healed with your relationship with God. There's different kinds of healing. You're not going to be cured, but you can be healed and find the peace within yourself.
It's interesting to think of the history of medicine beginning, if one can, with St. Luke, the physician who authored 2 of our New Testament books and who chronicled the miraculous and chronicled healings by Christ and by the apostles. It's a great challenge to Christian physicians at large, because there's got to be many of us around. And I think that challenge is this, that we need to be more willing to pray and believe for our patients and be more vocal in our community and be willing to stand up in the midst of criticism from our colleagues, no matter what that may be, and embrace the truth.
Dr. John Martin is a professor of psychology at San Diego State University and is studying the effects of prayer on health, especially for disease prevention.
Prayer is associated with decreased healthcare costs across the board. It's a very robust effect with reduced incidence and prevalence of heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure. It's been said that 20 years ago we were just discovering the importance of social support in health, and we're now probably at that place with spiritual and religious factors, that it's just now coming into being acknowledged by even secular, perhaps atheistic scientists, that this may be an important factor that we should explore and investigate. There's a tremendous interest now among the National Institute of Health in the factors, spiritual and religious factors in health. Last year, we were invited into New Creation Church here, where you see the exercise going on. And we jumped at the opportunity. We brought all our exercise equipment that you see here over, and we've been here for about a year. We just recently have started a research study in which we are comparing behavioral interventions for diet and exercise to reduce weight, to lower blood pressure, to improve diabetic control in the mainly African American participants. We also are studying how much do they pray, how much do they read the Bible, how often do they attend the religious services here, and how will that relate to the overall health outcomes that we're looking at and that we're intervening on from a behavioral perspective. So we're really integrating the two. We now also are comparing a widely used program using Christian, biblically based diet programs called the Way Down, and we'll be the first to investigate that. Our hypothesis is that people who engage in more religious and spiritual practices such as prayer, religious service attendance, meditation, and even following some of the biblical proscriptions and prescriptions, they will have significantly better health outcomes. In particular, diet change, weight loss, blood pressure control, diabetes control. We're especially interested in that and expect to see some positive changes along those lines. I think we'll see in the next 10 years a compartmentalizing of which spiritual practices, which religious denominations and directions seem to be the most beneficial for health. For those of us who believe in the Bible, we anticipate that the closer we are to biblical truths and to Christian spiritual practices, we ought to see enhanced health benefits.
The real healing is a healing of the spirit. The deepest healing really is a spiritual healing.
Father Justin Longeal is Spiritual Director of Contemplative Outreach of San Diego.
Most of us as children were taught that prayer is talking to God, thoughts or feelings expressed in words. But contemplative prayer goes to a much deeper level, a much more mature level of relating to God. In fact, that was the early church's understanding of contemplative prayer, primarily a relationship with God. So much of our world today is so hectic. We can talk about hurry sickness in the world today, where we're just so busy we don't have time for God. So the beauty of this prayer is really what we learn from within in this relationship, this dynamic relationship with God, which God actually initiates and we are attracted to, is a disposition of letting go, of surrendering, of saying yes to God in the moment, as God calls us to greater purification and greater transformation.
How I pray hasn't changed a lot, except that maybe less words and more acknowledging God's presence and knowing what I need more than I do, and always in gratitude.
One of the ingredients that I think it's very important for us to be aware is patience. Sometimes we want our answers to be prayed like this. God, I have been asking you for this since this morning, and it's noon. How come you haven't answered my prayer yet? In our time, it's not God's time. And that is part of my healing too, when I experience that in His time, everything is perfect.
I definitely believe in miracles. I definitely believe in the power of prayer to change things, maybe not the way you think they're going to. And I have learned that trusting God for the answers.
Life itself is a miracle. Miracles are happening in the very breath that we take. God will use anything possible to bring us to greater healing. To truly trust that is to believe in a God that's all-loving, all-powerful, all-embracing of what we truly want.
The healing for me was also going from denial to acceptance, and finally to the feeling of being blessed, because I did affect other people's lives.
Christ is the very source of that infinite power, and Christ shows us that way in His life and example, a way of total giving, of self-surrender, and of being compassion for all people.
The picture I kept getting was Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane saying, if this cup can pass from me, nevertheless, thy will, but not mine, be done. I really aligned myself with that, because that was exactly how I felt. I don't want this at all. Nevertheless, thy will be done.
The Gospels clearly share with us that that was not an easy surrender, but the practice, the experience of Christ in His relationship with the Father up to that time led Him to a point where He could truly surrender His entire life to the Father's will, even if that meant going all the way to the cross.
And I don't think it's over. It's not over yet. I mean, the power of prayer, what it's taught me, is still teaching me. It's still teaching me.
God's Word tells us to pray unceasingly. Miracles can happen, and we should always pray for healing of our minds and bodies. But the greatest miracle is the power of prayer itself. Prayer gives us the peace to accept God's will for our lives, no matter what it may be.